Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome onto the stage the Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva.
A very warm welcome to everybody to our annual meetings in Marrakesh, Morocco. The country has gone through a very tough time just a month ago, but it came out of it more united, more resilient. I started the day visiting with Minister Feta schools in the Atlas Mountains that were destroyed by the earthquake. Within 10 days, the kids that were going to these schools either were sent to another location where the school is still functioning, or hosted in tents, now in temporary buildings. And I can tell you, to get 100% of rural kids back in school and see their smiling faces was a fantastic experience. In fact, an inspiring one. We're here for IMF Inspired. This is a place where we bring those whose stories uplift us all, whose stories inspire us to stretch, reach higher, have the best of us come true. This year is no exception. Being here on the African continent, first time in 50 years, in half a century, we're here, Africa. It was, of course, right that we would look from inspiration coming from the incredible young women on this continent. We are going to have 3 of them bringing the experience in pharmaceuticals, in creative industries, in venture capital. And when they come on stage, I challenge you to guess who is who by the way they are dressed. We also have, as always, a great moderator of the discussion. This year it is Amanda Walker. She is the host of IMF Today, stepping for Sabina, who is here but not quite available, a little bit under quarantine for a couple of days. She will be back with us from Wednesday on. So before I go to you to guess who is who on the panel, I would like to ask our Honorable Minister of Finance, Nadia Feta, to take the floor on behalf of the incredible Moroccan host authorities.
Madam Managing Director of the IMF, dear Kristalina, esteemed representatives of society, distinguished attendees, I'm deeply humbled to be among such an exceptional lineup of great leaders and change makers today. From the outset, I wish to emphasize the unparalleled commitment of His Majesty King Mohammed VI to fostering gender equality and advancing women's rights. His early reforms, particularly the progressive amendment of what we call the Mudawana, the Moroccan family law, in 2004, marked a turning point for our nation's women. by bolstering women's rights in areas like marriage, sometimes they divorce, and in inheritance. King Mohammed VI's visionary leadership set the stage for gender parity. This revolutionary step not only reshaped the Moroccan legal landscape, but also its societal fabric, underscoring the significance of empowering women. Continuing on this legacy, his vision has paved the way for groundbreaking reform, which upcoming project promising a new generation of rights of women, and we will have a new project within 6 months. To highlight some achievements, our national fabric boasted of 6 women ministers, almost 100 women in the parliament, 4 major institutions led by women, and so many others, great women in Morocco. Beyond the numbers, women are integral contributors in various governmental and non-governmental capacities. These milestones result from our comprehensive approach, beginning with our 2011 new constitution, ensuring gender equality across the board. Our nation has prioritized gender equality for sustainable development, a cornerstone for ensuring women increase autonomy and participation in our nation progress. To further enhance the economic condition of women, we've advanced women's rights, improving access to employment and promoting female entrepreneurship. The annual meetings 2023 in Marrakesh presents a golden opportunity to center the discussions on women's significant role in Africa's impressive growth story over the past decade. As we move forward in today's event, I eagerly anticipate the insight and perspective from our esteemed speakers. Through our collective discussions, I hope to deepen my understanding and appreciation of the profound influence women have on shaping our goal narrative. Their stories, their struggles, and their successes serve as a testament to the boundless potential that lies within every woman. And to finish and to pay tribute to the most inspiring women, our mothers, allow me to quote Mrs. Michelle Obama, who once said that the future of our world is not only as bright as the future of our girls. And thank you for your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage your moderator and distinguished panelists.
السيدات والسادة الحضور، نرجو منكم أن ترحبوا بضيوف الندوة.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister and Managing Director, for those wonderful introductions. And a very warm welcome to everyone to this special Marrakesh edition of IMF Inspired. Over the next hour, we're going to showcase the richness, variety, and diversity of the continent. It's a continent that's on the move, with women spearheading much of the change. So today, IMF Inspired features 3 amazing women. For the next hour, you will hear their insights, their expertise, and their stories. And through those stories, we'll get a glimpse into the future, a future that's creative, that's digital, entrepreneurial, and innovative. And my guess is you're going to leave this room feeling inspired and optimistic for the future. So I'm about to give the answers to the Managing Director's quiz. Here we go. To my far left is Aurea Kolo of Kenya. a tech entrepreneur, venture capitalist, and partner in the Pan-African firm Vered Keppel Africa Ventures. Next to her is Mo Abudu of Nigeria, a media mogul and founder and CEO of Ebony Life Group, a Pan-African media, lifestyle, and entertainment group. And to my left is Lamia Tazi of Morocco, chairwoman of the board and the board of CEO of Southerma, a leading pharmaceutical company in Africa and the Middle East. A warm welcome to all of you. So I'm going to start with you, Lamia, if I may. So we know that Morocco is Africa's second largest pharmaceutical manufacturer. Southerma, your company, has over 35 labs. You manufacture over 300 critical products, insulin, antibiotics, the morning after pill, the COVID vaccine. Africa, though, is still importing most medications, and research and development is largely still being done abroad. So I want to know, how did you tap into Big Pharma, and how did you get the technical know-how, the scientific know-how to start making these products yourself?
Okay, thank you. Very pleased to be with you today, and especially in Morocco. I'm Moroccan, and I'm very proud that after all the disaster we had, unfortunately, in Morocco, everything is great here today. So welcome to everybody in Morocco. So we know after, unfortunately, the COVID, that health sector was very stressed, and we saw, unfortunately, that all the countries didn't have their pharma industry, had many difficulties to bring medicines and to the citizens. Morocco has the chance, and I'm very proud also to talk about this experience, to have this kind of production 50 years ago. Of course, thanks to a vision of the king, Hassan II, who motivates entrepreneurship in pharma industry by protection of the manufacturing. Right. And 50 years ago, we are very proud to have more than 50 companies manufacturing products in Morocco, and having more than 70% of the demand manufactured in Morocco. Unfortunately, and you said it, it's not the case in all African countries. It's not the case because countries are opening the market for this, and we saw that in COVID time it was very hard to follow these things. So in Morocco we had the chance to start by importation, of course, until the 70s. After tech transferring the products from Big Pharma, which are in US, in Europe, and unfortunately 20 years after, there is no tech transfer. Mondialization, globalization, and everything makes all the strategies of companies very focused on the biggest countries. And unfortunately, Africa is 1% of consumptions of drug and medicines around the world. So you can imagine that it's not strategic for all these countries. And from the 90s, all tech transfer stopped, and we see, fortunately, Moroccan companies taking the future of their country by hand by manufacturing generics. We have many challenges now. And everyone knows that, unfortunately, R&D is very hard. New medicines are very expensive. And due to the patents, we cannot have this kind of molecules in Africa. So the big challenge now is how we can move, how we can push to have these new molecules for our African patients in available and in less prices, of course. So Southerma, in this whole story, had the chance to license from big pharma companies for 30 years. We had big names giving tech transfer, giving us the opportunity to manufacture their products for Morocco and for the region. We had the chance also to develop our own range, and in 1923 we are very, very proud to develop oncology lines, which are very expensive products. We have various biotech products also, like insulin for all diabetics, and we know that diabetes is endemic in Morocco. And of course, thanks to all this vision, we are also able to export all these products in African countries. We don't want to stop in exporting, of course. We have also the vision for Africa. Sotema invested in a plant in Senegal, in Dakar, where we start to manufacture 10 years before molecules for the region, and we are going to expand our plants all over African countries.
Amazing. So much of what you're all doing is challenging the status quo. And Mo, I want to talk to you about that. You inhabit a different world, TV and media, and your focus has really been on creating a quintessential African brand. You started Africa's first syndicated daily talk show, Moments with Mo, then launched Ebony Life Media. And your story is so remarkable that you're a subject of a Harvard Business School case study. Anyone else? I don't think so. So what I'm interested in why you felt that need to start taking back the narrative in terms of what you were seeing and what you wanted to start seeing.
Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. It's wonderful to be here. And it's really important that I say that I've been here for 24 hours. And the hospitality that I have received has been tremendous. The Moroccan people are so friendly and warm. So despite what's happened, so thank you all so much for your hospitality and your kindness. My journey into media, where do I begin? So, born and bred in England, brought up watching television that had no representation of who I was as a person. And when there was representation, it was always negative. The roles that we performed were always negative. So, I did the usual thing that all African parents tell their children to do, go out and, become a doctor or a lawyer or a HR person. So I became a HR practitioner. I worked with one of the largest oil and gas companies in the world for a decade as head of human resources, ExxonMobil. And then I woke up one fine day and I said, I am done with this, because I'd been wanting to leave, but I didn't have the guts to do so. It's peer pressure, societal pressure is real. But at some point, I just said to myself it was important for me to make the move. So my first move was to leave Exxon and set up my own HR consulting practice, which made sense to a lot of people. Okay, she wants to be out in the world doing human resources. But shortly after that, I then decided that I wanted to start my own talk show. Because at that time, I looked around the continent of Africa, and there wasn't anything that was speaking to us as Africans that was either looking at the challenges we faced or even the successes that we had achieved, be it in media, be it in show business, fashion, whatever it was. There was really no one that was addressing some of the critical issues that faced us. So I started my journey with Moments with Mo. I'd never had any experience in television in my entire life. I sent myself on a training course to England to learn how to be a talk show hostess. I then watched all the Oprah Winfrey shows that I could lay my hands on. And then I decided to start this venture with the support of a few sponsors, because on the continent, commissioning and getting media, it's expensive to produce a show. I was lucky enough, I found a sponsor. At the time, MTN was just starting in Nigeria, so they were like, we're going to support you on this project. I approached the bank, they also supported the project, and I started Moments with Mo. And it made me realize how important it was to give a voice to the voiceless. I mean, as a continent, we've just been so quiet. The world doesn't know who we are, except for their vision of who they think we are. Meanwhile, we have our own vision of who we know we are. I remember many years ago, I had the opportunity to interview Hillary Clinton. And I said to her, how do we change the stereotypical view that the world has of Africa? And she said to me, more and more people like you need to be speaking on behalf of the continent. No one can tell our stories as well as we can. It's our responsibility to tell the stories, and we have to ensure that we have everything set up to be able to ensure that we can tell those stories. So I was inspired, and I was like, yes, from starting the talk show, I now wanted to go head on and start a TV channel. Again, I'd run the talk show for 10 years. I'd probably interviewed everyone that there was to interview. And of course, there's always going to be new people to interview. I now took it upon myself to say, what's the next step? Start a linear TV channel. So I went to MultiChoice DSTV. They run the largest pay TV platform in Africa. And I said, I would like to start a channel. And they gave me this long list of all the things I needed to do. And I had no idea how I was going to do this. And it was really scary. And I often say that if your dreams don't scare you, don't even embark upon them, there's got to be something scary that gives you that necessary adrenaline to get up in the morning and say, I'm ready to go. So I went in and I had the meeting, and they gave me the long list. And it took about 3 years to get the TV channel, Ebony Life TV, off the ground. But eventually we did. It was important to give our youth. I mean, the median age in Africa is 19. Their voices needed to be heard. And it was such an exciting time for us to be able to birth the types of shows that we did, from entertainment to lifestyle to drama to all sorts of shows that we had on the channel. And then at some point, I realized that linear TV wasn't where I wanted to be. It was important to now take our stories to a global audience. The world needs to know who we are. But this was a step-by-step approach. So I started reaching out to all the big studios in the world, from the BBC to Sony Pictures Television, to Stars, to Lionsgate, to Will Packer, to Will Smith, most recently to Idris Elba. We, as Ebony Life, have been fortunate enough to say that it's been a lot of hard work and a lot of rejections along the way. The world isn't really ready for Africa. We have to make them ready. And I will keep knocking on those doors, and I have been knocking on those doors, and thankfully, a percentage of them have started to listen to the fact that it's important for us to tell our stories. So we have projects in development. I'm hoping by 2024, 2025, these things will start to hit global screens. But Netflix also took a big step and decided to come to Africa. So we are their largest partner on the continent. We've brought out some of the biggest shows. You may have seen shows like Castle and Castle or Blood Sisters or Oloture on the Netflix platform. If you haven't, please do. And for us, that is how we, as Ebony Life, have decided that it's important for us to be out there telling the African story. I say there's a local for local market, and there's a local for global market. And that local for global market is about how do we collaborate with that international community that's out there, those big studios. It's about scale. We can't sit down and say, we're only going to do projects that are, I'm sure there are lots of financial people in this room. It's about scale. If you invest $1 million in a project, your return on investment may be 20, 30%. That's $200,000, right? Or $300,000. But if you do a movie that's $10 million, your return on investment is the same 30%, which is $3 million. If you do a movie that's $100 million, I'm sure you can figure out the math. So what's important for us is not to be afraid, is to take the step and to say, scale is important in our sector. It is a growing sector. It's an emerging market. And we need to find a way in which we can scale the African creative economy. I'm inspired by the women around me today. I'm inspired by the team of people that I continue to work with. And I just want to find ways in which we can continue to build momentum from what we're doing today, from what we've done in the past, to say we need to take Africa to a global world so that they recognize us and understand our history and understand who we are as a people, our passions, our aspirations, our purpose in life. Very similar to theirs. But oftentimes, you find that they think maybe we live under a tree or we eat bananas for lunch, breakfast, and dinner. These are stereotypical views and the crazy questions that people in the West continue to ask about us. And we need to change that perception. And we all have a responsibility to do so, because whatever we are inventing, whatever brands we're building, is impacted by that African brand. But let it be a shining African brand. So we have to make sure we go out there and tell these stories in a most positive manner. Thank you so much.
Mo, you touched on it there, the huge asset that is a youthful population. I think 70% of sub-Saharan Africa is under the age of 30, and it's so much, I guess, about harnessing that.
Absolutely.
And Ori, I want to talk to you about that potential. You yourself, you've had a rich and varied career post Harvard Business School. You were an activist. you've worked for Google, and now you are a venture capitalist. So essentially, you're looking for the next big thing. You are spotting talent. You are deciding who to invest in. So I want to know, how are you helping these bright young things actually get a foothold, actually get started, get access to what they need to make a go of it?
Thank you. And first, I'll echo, it's been wonderful to be in Morocco. I'm an investor, actually, in Morocco. One of our portfolio companies is called Shari. They're doing extremely well, very proud of them. And every entrepreneur I've met in Morocco is incredibly impressive. And many of you don't know, as part of the creative sector economy, Morocco is actually the hub, not just for manufacturing, but also for film. We're potentially looking at a film investment, and I was stunned to know that a lot of production is happening in Morocco. And for me, this is a country that just says, what is the potential if we make things, not just consume things? So really proud to be here. I'm actually a recovering lawyer. I went to Harvard Law School and loved the law, but loved technology even more. And this started in law school. When this was very early days of the internet, and practicing at cyber law was the cutting edge, really, of what I could be doing. But when I was at Harvard, also had the fortune of a lot of the top thinkers around tech and policy. This was around 2004-05, were fellows at Harvard. And most of them had spent time in Africa, and like everybody does when they visit us for the first time, fallen in love with the continent, and were very passionate about it. So my journey started really around how can technology, at that time I was young, less gray hair, empower people like myself, and especially as a woman, give us an opportunity to transcend what I felt were the very limited sort of physical walls. So I started off actually as one of the while I was still in law school, the very early bloggers. And that was important because narratives shape perception. They shape perception of risk, they shape perception of opportunity, perception of investment, and really just a self-belief, like who could we be if we told our own story? So I spent a lot of time on storytelling, then moved to activism, and I'll come back to how this ties into opportunities and what I'm doing now, as a civic tech activist. And at that time, I was obsessed with the role of technology and democracy and transparency and expression. So I was a co-founder of Mzalendo, which is still going on almost 20 years today, one of the most preeminent Parliament Watch organizations, started in Kenya, but is well known now around the world, and has really built, at that time it seemed so crazy because people are like, who's gonna go onto the internet to learn about their MPs and elected representatives? But our philosophy, my co-founder and I, was like, they work for you, and you should be knowing what they're up to. Second entrepreneurship venture was Ushahidi, which many of you might know. It's an open source software, co-founded also almost 16 years ago, that has been used in 153 countries around the world. And this was really the first African success story of software that's produced in Africa that travels the world. And this is quite critical in terms of what I'm doing now as a capital allocator. How do we build not just local for local, which is quite critical, but local to global? And how do we support entrepreneurs who can build world-class products that can travel? Then I decided, gosh, there's so many policy challenges in the work I was trying to do. Went to Google. I was the first head of policy and GovRel and strategy for Africa and built out that team. And there it was realizing there was not enough infrastructure to enable young people to thrive. So did a lot of investments in access. The first cheap Android phone that was $50 was done when I was at Google. TV white spaces, so many impactful things. Localization of YouTube, monetization. It seems very obvious now, but back then it was incredibly difficult for Africans to make money on the internet. In fact, until Flutterwave and Paystack, you couldn't even get paid You couldn't even pay, actually, for transactions in Africa. So there was internet access, but Africa was cut off from the rest of the world, especially in terms of the internet economy. So I spent a lot of time working on that. And then decided, actually, the opportunity is really in backing entrepreneurs, and not small entrepreneurs, like folks with a big vision, right? And that's important. One, because entrepreneurs really, the African economy is really entrepreneur-driven. You have government and all of these things, but it's really entrepreneurs. Second, they need to create jobs. So if these guys don't scale, they can't create enough jobs sustainably. And third, what I talked about, I really believe we can build products that can go global. But what did I know about finance? I'm a lawyer. But everyone was coming to ask me, from New York, London, San Francisco, Ori, who should we be investing in? And I'm like, wait a minute. If everyone is coming to ask me for advice, then maybe I know a few things. Yeah. And so I embarked on a journey of becoming an investor, first as an impact investor. Before VC, there was no one willing to take risk on African entrepreneurs other than impact money. So I ran the family office for Pierre Omidyar in Africa, and wrote a lot of the early first checks in startups, and then decided now to be a pure capitalist in venture. Why is this important, and why especially is it important to have more women investing in Africa? One, if we're not at the table as capital allocators, the money often goes to the wrong types of businesses, to the wrong types of founders, to people who don't understand the African context, and then they say, Africa is too risky. African entrepreneurs, VC doesn't work in Africa. Blah, blah, blah. And I think the more of us who are driving the decisions of where capital goes, who understand the unique context and challenges of building a scalable business in Africa, and then who can combine people like myself, our years of expertise, our networks, to deploy this capital to not just young people, to any entrepreneurs is important. Mo already alluded to Africa being a very young continent. You don't understand just, Africa will be imperative. I will say this, you will have to engage with us in the next 50 years, whether you want to or not. It's imperative. Some of our LPs, our investors in my fund are from Japan, and they're thinking 30, 40, 50 years. They can already see they will have to do business here, they will have to engage with consumers in this market, they will have to use talent from this, it's imperative. And so the challenge for us is how are we ready for that moment? Right? Is it going to happen to us, or are we going to happen to it? And so through investment, through building the next set of entrepreneurs in the tech space, I think is my little contribution to making sure that we are ready for the imperative rather than things happening to us. And the last thing I'll say, technology for me, I firmly believe it's not a panacea. There are many things we need to do, and I'll challenge those of you who are here from the World Bank and the IFC. Africa needs industrial policy. We cannot leapfrog. No matter AI, all the tech, etc., industrial policy is so critical to digital and digitization. We need to make things in Africa. It's so critical. We need those sustainable manufacturing, whatever jobs, because that frees up money for consumption, that frees up opportunities for digitization. But I firmly believe if we create a new generation of wealth from an asset class that is not dependent on rent seeking, is not extractive, it's just here. Your intellectual capacity, the internet, you can build things, no one is asking you for rent, no corruption, you can go build your business and travel around the world, creating a new set of wealth and entrepreneurs who can explain to you How I made money from A, B, C, D, E, F to become a billionaire is what is required to inspire the next set of young people.
And in this young population, you have this fertile ground of so much talent, which is exciting, but I imagine a challenge as well. I know, Mo, for you, it's a passion of yours, nurturing talent, but how do you reach people? And I also want to know, what's your idea of the future when it comes to getting that African brand out there?
For us, in my particular field, we have been proactive by setting up what we call the Ebony Life Creative Academy in partnership with the Lagos State Government, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. It's something that I've been touting to every incoming government for the last 10 years, that we need to invest in capacity building. And yes, I am in the creative sector, but this cuts across every single sector. There just isn't enough training and development done on the continent. So what we find is that we are always having to import certain skill sets for some of the larger projects that we have. And as a friend of mine says, a tree not planted 20 years ago, the best time to plant that tree is today. Because if not, we're going to be here having this Africa Inspired in another 50 years, and we're going to be having the same conversation about the fact that we haven't invested in our people. Investing in people takes time. You can't become a cinematographer overnight. You can't become an award-winning actor overnight, or writer, or director, or person that deals with continuity, or wardrobe, or any of the things in the value chain in my sector. And the same will apply to any sector. We need to invest in capacity building. So what we have done at Ebony Life is to set up an academy in Lagos. We run 8 courses that run through the entire year, which is script writing, producing, acting, directing, cinematography, sound, production design. And we take on board 120 students for each semester that come on 3-month courses. We're running those short courses, but we only allow those that already have some experience to come on the courses, because we don't have the capacity yet to run longer courses, and we want to try and get through a number of people every year. So right now we're doing about 480 to 500 students. And there are testimonials about some of them that have left us to go out there, and they've gotten jobs as actors, they're getting jobs as assistant directors, and so on and so forth. So we need to invest in our people. It is commercially viable to do so. The model we run right now, they don't pay for what they're getting. So in partnership with Lagos State and a few other sponsors, they come to our school free of charge. But they're going out and they are getting the work, so the impact can be felt upon that. Now, with regards to your second question about how do we go global, going global means collaborations. It simply means we need to say to ourselves, we're going to reach out to the world and say, we would like to do a film, a TV series that is XYZ millions of dollars. We would like to consider the writer that wrote Succession or the writer that wrote Desperate Housewives. We would like to have some of the bigger stars alongside African stars in this particular project. And what is going to take us to a global space is going to be collaboration. It's going to be how we collaborate with the world. We can't expand and build this creative economy on the continent by ourselves. We need to work in tangent with those that have been there, done it, bought the t-shirt, as I would often say, so that we can really together grow and have global projects. And global projects mean global marketing. If it's look at Barbie, for crying out loud. I'm sure some people here may have watched it, or their children may have watched it. It's the marketing behind Barbie that made it so successful. The Black Panther, an African story, it's the marketing behind it that made it so successful. The Woman King with Viola Davis, a Sony Pictures television, Sony Pictures film. Again, it's the marketing that made it as viable as it is. So we tend to find that we take a very small view in Africa that I'm going to make a small film, and I'm going to my budget is only whatever it is, $10,000. You cannot begin to scratch the surface with that type of investment. So if we're serious about growing this creative economy, we need to go in a very bullish manner and make big budget projects that you spend a huge amount of money advertising so that you get a decent return on your investment. It's as simple as that, really. I mean, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, as they say. So what are we ready to do, guys? We really have to think about scale. Again, it's back to scale.
Lamia, you were agreeing with Mo there when she was talking about the idea of investing in people and how crucial that is. When it comes to healthcare, what's your view on opportunities for young people? And I'm interested in what role you think government should and could play in that.
For health sector, we know that is less creativity and more strict. So we need people trained. It's really it's a truth. And in Morocco, I'm talking about Morocco because we are here. We need to implement more training for people. Fortunately, we had a lot of universities opened these last years for medicine, in pharmacy, in engineers. It started. We are very proud to have many persons working in our companies and get abroad. So Europe and Canada and US come and take it from us to go. So that means that training is good for the high level of managers. Unfortunately, we still need more training for middle management and workers. It's our role also. That's why we have academy also for training. We have a federation of pharma industry where we have this academy with governments to train all this middle management and workers and to prepare what is very important, the next generation of medicines. You know, medicine is changing, biotech is coming, even new technologies are coming with IA, with many other technologies, and we have to be ready. In IA, I'm not afraid about Africa. I know that in this case, we have really genius in this, and we are seeing all new generation of children growing with this, and even in my pharma sector, we are doing a lot in this IA, and it's helping a lot, and especially for data. I hope that we will talk about this data, which is very important in Africa. In our case, all these past years, data in Africa were not available. Africa were not interested in the rest of the world. And in health sector, we know now that it is very important to follow this data in terms of health because of the new generation of medicines, because of clinical trials that have been done on African patients. Unfortunately, it's not done on African country. We are using some products and we never know if it works or no because it has been done in the other part of the world. So data is very important, and training young people in this new generation of technology is very important. Of course, the role of the government is very important. Government has to create the opportunities for these young people to go through these trainings, to go through these schools, and I know from my side that Moroccan government is aware about this. They are doing things. I'm sure that all African countries are doing the same, but it has to be improved.
Yeah, and sticking to that role of government, Ori, what do you think the government should be doing when it comes to democratizing talent and innovation?
So several things. I think one, on the talent score, I can't underscore it enough, and not just education at a tertiary level, actually more investment starting very early on, because when you have kids, you realize that the nursery to primary school is actually so critical. So one, education is an obvious one. But I think just getting out of the way, speaking as an entrepreneur and an investor, just get out of the way. Africans are incredibly resilient. I mean, look at Morocco, Marrakesh is an example. And I don't want, again, to overhype, we can resilience ourselves to almost extreme poverty. So it's not that, like, let's just make it through. But really thinking always in terms of policy, taxation, etc. I know a few governments now looking at startup acts. Morocco has one, Tunisia has one. I see my Rwandan neighbors here at the front are doing an incredible amount of work in terms of setting themselves up as a hub for innovation, really supporting entrepreneurship. So I think when it comes to policy making, is really asking, is this enabling or are we restricting? So really it's getting out of the way. And just building, we were having a conversation earlier around AI. I'm often asked, should we be worried? Is this dangerous? It's inevitable, again. And I think the opportunities for Africa are incredible here. On the lower end, most of you might not know that ChatGPT-3, the learning model, was done by Kenyans. Yeah? So a lot of the... Now, where government should have been stepping in is making sure they were not being paid peanuts, because they were being paid peanuts for something that's making $1 billion a month, right? So we're 50% of the way there in creating an environment where global companies can come and test the models. Uber does all its training in Kenya. A lot of the autonomous vehicles, their learning machines are being developed in Kenya. Tunisia, the most successful startup exit so far, DeepMind, is an AI company out of Tunisia, $400 million exit, right? And to a UK company. Clinical research, you talked about it, and maybe something I should emphasize, what we're trying to do as Verd for Africa is back this category-defining companies. You're not building Uber for Africa or, I don't know, whatever for Africa, you're category-defining. There are now at least 2 African startups that are solving the clinical trial problem. Because in the future, you cannot develop your medication without it catering for the largest population in the world. Again, we will be imperative. Your trials will have to be done here. So I think there's AI, lots of opportunity. The challenge, the gap that we have is that the models are not learning with our data. So we have to make sure that the AI learning is incorporating African data and information. And now I've digressed from the original question that you asked me. Just remind me what it was.
So I was asking you about the role of government.
Yes. So I spoke, I think, about about the role of government.
And I was interested in what you said there because, I was expecting you to say, get involved and give us everything. But sometimes you want the opposite, right?
Yeah, it's really, it just creates the enabling environment. We're very fortunate in that we have a demographic, maybe it's unfortunate, that has come to expect very little of government. And so they are pretty much just saying, give us the space, give us the regulatory environment.
Make things possible.
Just make things possible. Build the basic infrastructure. So what government should be doing is the basics. So provide public goods, health, power, infrastructure, roads, maybe social protection.
I think there should be.
The end.
I think the governments must invest in education.
Yeah. And education.
They must invest in education because there are many that have the potential.
Right.
And that potential may never be realized unless they have the necessary guidance and training to be who they need to be at the most basic level. So I think definitely we have to add education.
There was something interesting I was reading about it's called Efosa Ojomo. He's a Harvard Business School professor, Nigerian. And he was talking about the markers of, she can speak to it, building a business that scales in Africa is incredible. Both of you actually entrepreneurs, and I'm a former entrepreneur, is incredibly difficult. And he goes into what are the key ingredients of scaling successful entrepreneurs. And his last point was love, actually. It's like a successful African entrepreneur has to have love for what they're doing in Africa because it's incredibly difficult. So maybe I would add, we need governments who love Africans. We need leaders who love us. Like seriously, who okay, maybe like us even. Because some of these policies, when they come out, or the leadership we have to ask yourself, do you even like us? Like, as your people, as leaders, as your voters, do you like us? Because if you did, you wouldn't do some of these things. And so maybe if I was to add one more thing to the pot of what government should be doing, it should be loving its people or caring about them. Because if you start from a position of care, you will always do the right thing for your people.
Can I just add one point to that? Absolutely. I think African governments also have a responsibility to ensure that as they lead, that they have the right set of capable, experienced leaders to work with them. Like, if you're a private-run company and you run a bank, you're not going to go and get a pharmacist to come and be the MD of the bank, right? Unless they have banking experience and they know how to build on the bank. So what I would say to a lot of African leaders is, please, as you select those that are your ministers and special assistants and all these other positions that need to be filled, can you please put people in those positions that can grow their own areas of expertise? Because if not, we're going to be handicapped before we even start the race from day one.
Time is flying, as I knew it would. I want to hear a bit more about your personal stories. I want to know about the obstacles that you faced, the risks that you took, and what it took to get where you are now. And if I can start with you, Lamia, healthcare, a male-dominated industry, like so many still, unfortunately. Tell us about your experience of working in that environment and breaking through.
It's always difficult to talk about myself, but I will try. So I'm a pharmacist, and I joined the family company in 1997, so it's a long time now. And the big challenge was not to be a pharmacist, a woman pharmacist. It had to be the daughter. I was the daughter of the founder, and the challenge was here, because even so we come and we have the legacy and we have all the power to do, but the power is anything comparing to the recognition of your expertise. So all my journey was about knowing, about working, and prove that I am a woman, I'm the daughter of the founder, I'm still young, and I am in the head of the company. I was lucky because I had a good team, and I worked very closely. And again, and as a woman, I think that woman has these skills that perhaps men doesn't have. Is sorry about men, sorry, but guys. It's a woman. So we have the tribune, so we have to speak. No, it was easy because we have this facility to work with people, to have empathy, and to make all people work together. And I think it was my power, because expertise we'll find it everywhere, and the thing is to have to choose the right people, to give them the right place to show their expertise, and to work. And I'm very proud to be in family business. Even we grow, and I'm sure that we grew because we had this family mindset. So it is positive. We had also negatives, and it's the way of everyone. Challenges perhaps were a woman in a man world. Mm-hmm. It is a man world in health sector, with government, with all with all our entrepreneurs world. It was not difficult, but you always have to prove that even you are a woman, you are competent, and not to just because I'm a woman that I have plus than the others. It is very important. Challenges in my sectors were I'm just thinking about it, and perhaps it was unconscious, but as a woman, I went in the development of the company because as I told you from the beginning, it was just under licensing product, and my role was to develop new generations of products and our own brands. It is difficult for African company to build the brand and to in the country and outside the country. And it was unconscious, I think, because I went in some areas which were talking to me. For example, I developed the first oncology, the first product against breast cancer, which is endemic, unfortunately, all around the world. And my power was to manufacture it in Morocco. It took something like 7 years, because it was difficult for our Ministry of Health to think that a Moroccan company can manufacture this kind of thing. Even it was partnership, of course, and I come back to what Mo said, it is collaboration. We, African country, we don't have the money to develop by ourselves the R&D, but it was collaboration with other companies, but we collaborate and we were very proud to manufacture. But it took 7 years that people, that government, that Ministry of Health, that all trust in us. But we did it. And now we are very proud to take 6 times more patients in breast cancer than before, when we just have the product from the big pharma company who was sold in the country. Second thing, and it's more funny, it's the after morning pill. I know that all women perhaps know it, but it was difficult. It took 10 years to get the approval. Another company took it in Morocco because I'm trusting that it is important to have this kind of product for all women who had accidents.
Right.
And it was difficult because it took 10 years, and no one wants to go in political discussion, about abortion, about all these things. And when I came, I had the chance to have a Minister of Health, which was a woman. So between 2 women, we succeed in having this pill in Morocco, and now it's a success also.
Ori, I saw you expressing solidarity there with Lamia when she was talking about operating in a largely male environment. I don't think there are many female capital allocators. What has that experience been like for you?
It's been interesting because every time you hit a new milestone in your career, you think you've seen it all. And this is a shift for me, being in pure VC investment. And I have to start again in terms of demonstrating or encountering, maybe not again from start, but encountering certain biases, especially when it comes to investment. It's supposed to be all intellectual, data-driven, and all of these things, which are important. But I think the challenge for me has just been getting comfortable with bringing my authentic self to the role as a woman, especially, because sometimes you feel it, right? You can see something, you can see the opportunity. It's not in a model, it's just your instincts that are telling you that this is the right investment. So I think the big challenge has been, one, getting comfortable with a different style of investing. And it's always interesting because I'm finding myself then biasing towards female founders because I can see now, as an investor, how they're biased against. So that would be the main one, just bringing myself, I think getting comfortable. And there's always a presumption. That's my last thing. When I was getting ready to switch roles, I listened to a lot of podcasts of successful VC investors, and mostly white male, mostly in California. And they talk about their journey. And I was like, oh, so-and-so, we had coffee. And they said, oh, we think you should get into this. Oh, I think you'd be a good investor. Or, it's all very buddy-buddy and based on life experience. But for women, it's like, have you done 3 years here and 4 years here and this and this? The list is longer. So I think giving women that same flexibility that's accorded to male investors is something that's quite critical.
And Mo, from HR to media megastar, any aspiring Mo Abudu's in the audience, what would you say to them? What's your one piece of advice that you would offer?
I would say that as a Black African woman, you need to work 3 times harder than anyone else in the world, simply because it is who we are, and that is the challenge that we face. It's bad enough just being a woman. You face a certain amount of discrimination. It's bad enough being a Black woman. You face a certain amount of discrimination. And then on top of that, you are an African Black woman. That's the 3rd layer of discrimination that we face. But I say that what it does is that it makes us stronger. It makes me prepare more. It makes me work harder. It makes me more determined, knowing that I have these obstacles to overcome. So I over-prepare, and at the point when I am presenting to whoever it is in the world, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm like, yeah, because I've worked 3 times harder than everybody else that's presented to you. That's why you are impressed with what I have done. And that is all we have to keep doing. We just got to keep, you've got to find what, as you said, love. You've got to love what you are doing. If you wake up every day feeling like, I don't want to do this job, then you are in the wrong job. If you wake up knowing that you're inspired and you're happy and you want to go out there and make something happen, then you know that this is for you, and then you put everything that you have into it, making it happen, and my belief is just keep going. You are going to get the rejections, but you're also going to get the opportunities, because it's a numbers game. Everybody's not going to say no, and with each passing person that you engage and you speak to, you're learning things along the way. They've rejected it because of XYZ. You go back and you rejig whatever it is you've done. By the time you're making the next presentation or the next pitch, as I call it, then you know that you're better, in a better place to go. So. And as I often say, if you can think it, we think, we do. And that's what women are known for. Let's just keep thinking, ladies, and let's just keep doing it. Thank you.
And thankfully, you can get more of Mo in a session tomorrow, which she is hosting, Africa Creates. And then also we have Africa Engine for Innovation, not to be missed on Wednesday. Now, I have one final question for each of you. It's a quick question. I want to know, each of you, you are obviously inspiring, but who inspired you? Who inspires you? Lamia, let's start with you.
Sorry for ladies, but my inspiration was a man.
Okay.
And
let you off.
I'm a daughter, so my father is not inspiration, it's more motivation. He created the company, and he was ill, and he fight for this company, and I came as a daughter, and I fight with him. He passed away in 2020, so yeah. So it's for me, it's the challenge to continue. And as a visionary man, I learned everything about him, and I continue to do what he learned to me.
Yeah, family is so important for any kind of motivation.
I'm going to follow suit, and I'm going to say my mom. My father died when I was 11. She's has a strong female presence in our lives. And my children, I've got a daughter and a son, and my kids are the most honest people that I know. They just tell me how it is, and I trust them with everything, and my mom too. So really for me, my mom, my children, yeah, they give me all the inspiration that I need.
And Ori.
I'm going to not be innovative at all and just add on to, I'd say my parents. My father also passed away, but he was a fighter and really very proud to be a father of girls only, which was quite tough in those days. And if I look at what my parents, I'm a parent now, I'm a mother of 3. If I look at what they did with the little they had then, to produce 2 incredible kids who, really, my life story is like a movie in terms of where I've ended up. So I have no choice but to 100x what they did. So I am inspired by what they've done. And I think the world, many of us have to leave Africa to be successful. I've said this before. It's unfortunate, and I see it coming back a little bit in Nigeria and Kenya. And so I work really hard so that my kids can have the life that they want to live, and other children in Africa. So I'm inspired by that vision, so that you don't have to live to find success, that you can find success at home.
What a great way to start these annual meetings. I can't thank you enough. I feel invigorated, and I'm sure you'll all leave here feeling inspired and in a position to make the most of this opportunity here in Africa for the rest of the week. Thank you so much.
Yeah?
Let's take a picture. Let's take a group picture.